David Pastrnak broke through, and the Boston Bruins are off to the second round of the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans? Welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Sunday, May 5th, and the Boston Bruins have defeated the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 7 of Round 1 thanks to David Pastrnak's overtime goal. We are going to talk about it here on a special bonus episode. First, I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today we're talking about a Game 7 win for our Boston Bruins over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. Now, I am a lifelong Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for 20 years. Before that, I was a full-time hockey news editor for The Score. I was on the desk there when the Bruins lost to the Canadiens in Game 7. I've seen my fair share of Bruins series losses. We're coming off a year where they blew that 3-1 series lead to the Florida Panthers. They lost in a Game 7 to Carolina the year before that. Of course, 2019, losing in Game 7 to the St. Louis Blues. And that's just in the last handful of years. We've seen our fair share of disappointments as Bruins fans. As successful as this team has been over the last 15, 20 years. And if the Bruins, like big picture, if the Bruins had not beaten Toronto, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, right? This was a transition year. It was a year in which they were absorbing salary cap bonuses to David Krejci, Patrice Bergeron, $4.5 million in dead cap space there. Trying to get some younger guys into the lineup. But losing in that fashion 2 years in a row would have had consequences. And things weren't looking good last night when they were down 1-0 in the third period on a goal from who else? William Nylander, who since coming back into the series had been lights out for Toronto, their best player without question. But in one of his best games as a Boston Bruin, Hampus Lindholm, we'll talk about him in a moment, but he scored the tying goal. And then David Pastrnak, who had been called out by head coach Jim Montgomery after Game 6, Monty saying Pasta needs to step up. And he did have a better game overall. But this play, it was reminiscent of the Torrey Krug days where Pasta just called his shot, basically. He saw that the Leafs were 3 wide, kind of flat-footed. You could see him sticking out his stick, telling Lindholm that he's about to fly. Lindholm sent the puck in perfectly off the end boards. It bounced back out for Pasta to gobble it up, and he put a beautiful move on Ilya Samsonov, who, to his credit, had been very good all night long, and the Bruins are off to round 2. Much was made of the fact that Joseph Woll had been injured on apparently the Morgan Geekie goal scored with 0.1 seconds left in Game 6. He was out. Ilya Samsonov came in. Everybody, Toronto side of things, was saying, oh, this is disastrous. Samsonov was very good in this game, and he gave his team a chance to win, although the Bruins, a lot of their shots you could see were like right in the logo. Nevertheless, David Pastrnak knew that he had a beat on the Leafs and took advantage to perfection. And I just loved that for Pastrnak after having been called out by Jim Montgomery, after experiencing some lows in this series. He had been held in check by this team, kind of surprisingly. Like, the Leafs aren't really known as a stellar defensive team, but to their credit, especially in games 5, 6, and 7, they kept the Bruins at bay for large chunks. And there were plenty of times in game 7 that I was like, is this team ever going to score? My faith in the Bruins heading into last night's game was not high. I'll just say that. I'm generally a cup half full guy with this team, but thank goodness, just after game 5 and 6, it was hard to think that they were going to break through. They just looked so lost, but they stuck with it and played an exceptional game in game 7. There was no slow start. They came out firing on net. And as good as Samsonov was, just a matter of time before he broke. And the Lindholm goal, it wasn't a fantastic goal. Just get the puck on net. Pastrnak's goal, though, was a set play, and it was beautiful. He said it was a huge moment, obviously. A lot of excitement. You could say a little relief as well. It was a tight checking game. It was nice to get it. The happiness from the group and sticking together the whole series was unbelievable. Couldn't be more proud of ourselves. And Jim Montgomery added, when you're not getting a lot of offensive chances, you can lose patience at times. And the Bruins talked about not losing patience. Being above, being behind, being physical, just being relentless with that kind of attitude. And that's why he was so happy to see the maturity in that group. And I mean, to advance to the second round after last season's disappointment, you can't understate that, how much this means for this group, for the younger guys on this team. Pasta's not really a young guy, but McAvoy's still relatively young. Jeremy Swayman, Mason Lohrei, these are Trent Frederick, John Beecher. These are guys who stepped up in this series, as well as Brad Marchand, obviously, to erase last season's failure and to get further this year than they did again with that historic regular season. It certainly means a lot. And who knows what would have happened if they had lost, if there would have been knee-jerk reactions, poor decisions. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that. And this season already is a positive because they have made it to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. All right, we're going to talk about Lindholm, Swayman, and more here as the podcast continues. Jeremy Swayman was clearly the MVP for the Boston Bruins in round 1, and you can make your ride an MVP with eBay Motors. You can get everything you need to turn it into a winner and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your number one ride, and you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And the eBay Guaranteed Fit is available only to U.S. customers. All right, I am so into Monopoly Go lately. And here's why. You can team up with your friends for timed tournaments. Work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. This is not your older brother's classic Monopoly Go. This is new, fresh, exciting every day. Always new timed events that help you win big. Like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. I wanted to mention I got a tweet this morning from Xanadu Boston, and they said one thing to mention on the podcast. The TD Garden was a great crowd on Saturday. All the doom and gloom people had sold their tickets, leaving the Bruins with a crowd expecting a win. No nervous energy, just excitement. Full credit to the crowd for being just incredibly loud and energetic all night long. There was a bunch of Leafs fans. You could see them there from TV, but did not let that dissuade them. And the Bruins are off to round two. And I got to give some credit here to Hampus Lindholm. What a game he had. He led this team with 6 shots on goal. That's all players. He had the game-tying goal, and he had, of course, the primary assist on Pasternak's game-winning goal. A lot of Bruins fans have been down on Lindholm this season. He admittedly has not been as good as he was last year. We all remember when Charlie McAvoy was out, Lindholm stepped up, and he was a legitimate Norris Trophy candidate last season. Took a bit of a decline this year, but in game 7, he was one of Boston's best players, and he is one of the big reasons why this team is off to round 2. He looked confident out there. A couple of moments shaky with the puck, but what have we been talking about? Get the puck on net, make some plays, and he did both of that while getting the most shots for this team last night. So full credit to Lindholm. First star of the night, though, once again, Jeremy Swayman. Look at these numbers in this series. 6 starts, 4-2 record, 181 shots against, 172 saves, 9 goals allowed in 6 games for a 1.49 goals against average and a 950 save percentage. 95% of Toronto shots were stopped by Jeremy Swayman. And there was a lot of talk, again, about Joseph Woll, how he stepped up. Ilya Samsonov played great in Game 7, but the Maple Leafs just had no answer for Jeremy Swayman, or very few answers. William Nylander was able to break through in Game 6. Austin Matthews had his moment in Game 2. But what an unbelievable effort for Jeremy Swayman, who has solidified himself in the ranks of Bruins' great goaltenders with that playoff performance. And no disrespect to Linus Ullmark, but you have to continue to ride Jeremy Swayman as we begin this Florida series. And we're going to preview that series on the next episode with Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers. But the big takeaway from today, David Pastrnak was called out by Jim Montgomery after Game 6. Pasta needs to step up. He recognized an opening in overtime. He took full advantage of it thanks to Hampus Lindholm's unbelievable play to carry it off the boards right to Pasta, who put a beautiful move on Ilya Samsonov for the game winner. You could see the reaction from Jeremy Swayman. Mine was similar in my family room, and just so happy that this team was able to break through to the second round. You look at last year's disappointment, how loaded that roster was, and you look at everybody they lost, the expectations on the Toronto side of things. Make no mistake, there's going to be ramifications in Toronto for this loss. Not as extreme if they had lost in 5 games. The fact that they were able to push it, it says a lot about that team and their resolve. But Boston, in what was supposed to be a transition year, making it to the second round, having a chance to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yes, Florida is a very good, tough team, and the Bruins will be in tough against them. But don't forget, they were 4-0 against Florida in the regular season. And with Jeremy Swayman playing like this, who knows what is possible with this group. Yeah, it would have been a bad scene if Boston had lost Game 7 on home ice once again. They had been 0-6 dating back to that Carolina series in closeout games. They had lost a few game sevens in a row dating back to that St. Louis series. I'm not saying this team's going to win the cup, but to advance to the second round, to get some more valuable experience for some of these younger guys, for this core devoid of Patrice Bergeron to step up and advance, it's huge for this group. And looking forward to seeing it. Patrice Bergeron was the banner captain. That certainly got the guys ramped up. Zdeno Chara was in the building. Jack Edwards was in the building. For the guys to step up and win in front of those legends and, yeah, just erase that narrative of the choke, it's huge. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they're able to do against the Florida Panthers. Either way, successful campaign by any measure for the Bruins this season. All right. It's not cup or bust. You want to advance. You want to do better than you did last season. And this is with a lesser group. So do the math. It's a success. All right. We'll be back tomorrow to preview the series against the Florida Panthers with Armando from Locked On Florida Panthers. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And thanks for jumping aboard here on this bonus episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day.